Crisis on Earth A. That's right, it's a letter this time. And we're gonna get to why, but this crisis is a wild ride. I'm so excited. We've been going through DC Crisis storylines leading up to Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985, or at least stories that have the word crisis in the title, because some of them are not as serious as others. Also, that titling can be on the cover or inside, because sometimes it's lurking within. So far, we've done the first two. The first was the triumphant return of the JSA after 12 years. That was in Justice League of America issues 21 and 22 in the year 1963. That one was followed up by Crisis on Earth 3 and the most dangerous Earth of all. Those were in issues 29 and 30 in 1964. Those issues introduced the Crime Syndicate, the villainous alternates of our heroes, and some commentators felt that it may have had an influence or been the inspiration of the iconic Mirror Mirror Star Trek TOS episode. I love that episode, and every time I rewatch it or I'm reminded of it, I think about how I want Uhuru's outfit. I very nearly bought it as a cosplay or Halloween costume. I still might. Now, at the end of those stories, the Crime Syndicate was left in the void in a bubble with a bunch of signs around it warning people to stay away, and they would stay away until 1978, where they briefly broke out, but not all of them, only 3. I'm sorry, Ultraman and Owlman, I don't know what happened. They got eaten, except they didn't, because later you'll get to see all of them in a later crisis. I kind of want to talk about that mid-breakout point because Captain Comet is there, and Captain Comet is making a bit of a comeback, or they're trying to at least, time recording. Now, these issues also featured the JSA teaming up with the JLA, and that would become an annual thing for quite a number of years. But our next crisis has a variation on the theme. We're changing it up, and it has one of the funniest panels in it I have ever seen. Ever. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's crisis time. The best time. We want more of the same creative team. We have Gardner Fox writing, we have Mike Skowski on pencils, and we have Bernie Sachs on inks. Our story kicks off in Justice League of America 37 from 1965, and the first part is Earth without a Justice League. So the JSA get to be on the cover, and it's exclaiming, how can this be? The Adam Al Pratt karate chopping a genie will never not be funny to me. And yes, that genie is the Thunderbolt. And that also makes this cover significant because not only are they fighting another good guy, but also that means that we're going to see the return of Johnny Thunder. Non-Western Johnny Thunder. Johnny Thunder had debuted in Flash Comics #1, this in 1940, and was created by John Wentworth and Stan Ashmeyer. He has a genie that's bound to him that he can summon by saying, say you. It's not spelled that way, but that's how you say it. They always have to go on and make sure that they put that there so that people say it right. He was a bit more of a comedic character, or he became one, and he would actually be replaced in his own backup by Black Canary. She debuted as a support for him in Flash Comics 86, and by Flash Comics 92, it was her backup, which leads to one of my favorite quotes from her co-creator, Carmine Infantino. He stated, I was drawing Johnny Thunder, which was not much of a character. I suppose he could have been better because his Thunderbolt was interesting, but the situations they were in were pretty juvenile. Bob Kanigher wrote those stories, and he had no respect for the characters. These shots fired. These stories were nowhere near as good as the Flash stories. DC knew it. They knew Johnny Thunder was a loser, so Kanigher and I brought the Black Canary into the series. Immediately she got a good response, and it was bye-bye Johnny Thunder. Nobody missed him. I mean, I'm sure maybe a few people missed him. But as one can see, he's not a character that was taken too seriously, either by some fans or by some creators. As time has gone on, that's changed. There's actually been some pretty interesting Johnny Thunder storylines much later. But at this point, he's not quite mascot status, but he's approaching that level in terms of when he's there, there's going to be shenanigans. Actually, that means he's more than the mascot, because that means things are going to happen. Looking at you, Snapper Car. All of that just lay the context that when it comes to Johnny Thunder, there's a bit of a oh that Johnny kind of energy from the JSA. This crisis opens bringing him back. The very air seems charged with excitement when one receives a special delivery letter, and such proves the case with Johnny Thunder. Well, it's about time I finally was invited to attend a meeting of the revived Justice Society of America. It's been burning me up the way they've gone off on adventures again without giving me a tumble. You want a tumble from the whole JSA? That's a lot of members. Also, they have rotating membership. Johnny goes on to call on Yiz, his Thunderbolt. It's YZ. That's how I'm gonna say it. Yiz. But then he remembers that they had a fight, and they're still on the best terms. They're still sniping at each other. Listen, you belong to me, and don't you forget it. Besides, where would you go? No one else has power over you. To Earth 1, that's where. I'll bet it's Johnny Thunder wouldn't treat me the way you do. No, he'll treat you so much worse. Now this makes Johnny curious, and so he wishes to see what his counterpart is like on Earth 1. It's part throwaway wish, but he said the words, I wish, and so off they go. His wish is Yiz's command, unfortunately for him. But this Johnny Thunder is not what he expected. His suit is brown. For several moments, the two Johnny Thunders eye each other from head to toe. I must admit, you're very good looking, but that's only because you look like me. Say, pal, I remember reading about you and your Thunderbolt. Is he for real? Does he really make with them hocus pocus stunts? Of course, but your grammar is awful. You leave my grammar out of this. I'm talking about your Thunderbolt. I never was given one, even though I was brought up by the Badnesians just like you was, and would have the power to make it obey me. No, Thunderbolt, I'm sorry. His grammar is bad because this Johnny is bad, and we're playing into stereotypes. Also, gave him a genie is a very nice way of describing Johnny's origin, because he was kidnapped because he was the seventh son of the seventh son and used as part of a mystic ritual to rule the world, but it fell apart because a neighboring country attacked. He's not returned to his family for years and doesn't know he has a genie for even longer. He's actually very well adjusted, all things considered. However, what's going on here is going to be extremely significant. Ignore the little who's on first banter they're having. Now, Earth 1 Johnny knocks out Earth 2 Johnny, and after he uses the magic word that he's eventually able to recall, he commandeers the genie to commit crimes. This marks the first instance of a singular character deviation on Earth 1. Let me explain. Up until this point, the rhetoric has been, as on Earth 1, so on Earth 2, or reverse that really, because Earth 2 is the Golden Age Earth, so those characters came first. But the whole idea was that with some variations, each Earth needed its version of, say, the Flash or Green Lantern, and the people who are good, and the people who are bad. Earth 3 was the introduction of the idea of a total reversal. So everything was flipped and topsy-turvy. However, this is different because it's showing that the different circumstances on the Earths could lead to someone who was good on one being bad on the other. And that may seem like a small thing, but it's a game-changing idea for this multiverse. Now, the crimes that he has the genie commit, less revolutionary. He just has him go and try and steal some payroll, but he bumps into the Flash. Hey, Flash, cut that out. Don't you know me? He does recognize him in a moment because we established in the Flash 123, Flash of Two Worlds, that Barry reads comics, that they exist on Earth 1 and that they're written by Gardner Fox, and a bit of a meta kind of acknowledgement. And so he's read the All-Star comics, and they've mentioned Flash comics so that he knows who Johnny Thunder and the Thunderbolt are. But bad Johnny Thunder grows impatient. This crime is taking too long, and so he recalls the genie. And when he recalls him, he learns that the Justice League or one of the members got in the way. We don't really need to bother about designating him as the evil Johnny Thunder though, because good Johnny's gonna spend both these issues knocked out magically. Now this makes Earth 1 Johnny realize that he has to do something about the Justice League, and he comes up with a truly dastardly plan. Say you, now hear this, go back in time and do whatever you have to do to prevent the Justice League from ever becoming superheroes. I am mon Capitan. These panels are peak. These are the best panels. I love them. He goes back and stops the Justice League members from becoming. Deflecting the lightning bolt, the Badnesian Hex Harpoon prevents Barry Allen from getting the lightning-caused chemical bath which originally turned him into the Flash. I have all the chemicals indexed properly, so might as well go home. When it comes to Superman, he stops Krypton from exploding by turning the core into lead. That probably caused more problems, but we'll ignore those because what that means for our purposes is that baby Cal is not coming to Earth. Abin Sur never trapped in that deadly yellow radiation, so he doesn't come to Earth. No Green Lantern. The space dust that Ray Palmer Atom needed for his experiment exploded in space. Actually, he punches it, so it doesn't come down, so he doesn't have it. Can't become the Atom. Dr. Erdal's experiment that brought Martian Manhunter to Earth, sabotaged. But by far, the best panels are how the Thunderbolt deals with Batman. And I think the comic knows this because this is the one that has the editor's note back to Detective Comics, back to Batman's first appearance. They want you to know what they're referencing. Into Gotham City he speeds to that instant in time when Batman is making his first ever appearance as the masked Manhunter. I hate doing this to Batman, but it's the only way I can cut his career short. Assisted by the Thunderbolt, the two criminals slam heavy fists into Batman. Where'd I ever get that wild idea I'd make a good crime buster? Oh, this is my first and last case. I'm going back to being a playboy. He is not vengeance. He is not the knight. But the best part of this, aside from these two random criminals knocking out Batman and making him decide that he's just going to be a dilettante, is that this did not have to be how the Thunderbolt dealt with it. He saved all of Krypton. He couldn't stop one mugger. He just didn't want to save Bruce's parents. No, the much better solution was just to have Bruce live his whole life feeling that he wasn't good enough to fulfill the vow he made to his parents after they died. Why does the Thunderbolt hate Bruce? And so after some speedy cliff notes for the other members, the Justice League is vanquished. They never were. And that means that because of that, history has been altered. And so in a way, is this not another Earth? That's what Johnny Thunder thinks, and so he names it. Okay, so I'll call it Earth A for alternate. That's why this Earth doesn't have a number, because it's different from the other Earths. It's not a parallel Earth, it's an Earth that's been created because of an alteration in the timeline. In the last video, some who knew of this story argued that this crisis could be a proto-hypertime story because of the fact that it's an altered timeline, not a straight, direct, alternate Earth. What do you think of that? Now on Earth 2, the Justice Society are wondering, where's Johnny Thunder? He was supposed to be there hours ago. I bet they just did the whole meeting without him. Dr. Fate uses his crystal ball to see that he's passed out on the floor after tracing the ionized air in his apartment to Earth 1. And then they see that his counterpart, despite having this all-powerful genie who could alter the fabric of reality and time, is just planning to start a gang and rob some banks. As they have done in the past, the superheroes of Earth 2 vibrate into the space-time continuum of Earth 1. I like that they all just have their arms out. That's the vibration. That's how they get there. Remember, just vibrate real hard if you want to get to alternate Earths. And so Johnny Thunder finds his robbery foiled by the JSA. Roll call. This time we have, because remember, rotating membership, Mr. Terrific, Terry Sloan, the Atom, Al Pratt, Hawkman, the Flash, Jay Garrick, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and Dr. Fate. I gave him a bit more hype because he's going to be real important in this story. Now, the Genie Code says that Yiz cannot flat out kill, but he can still be used to attack the JSA. But he's doing so with malicious compliance. Every order that Johnny gives him, he tries to find a way to only follow it in such a way that doesn't really hurt them, that's not very effective. This is really annoying Johnny, but it's also forcing him to have to be a bit more clever with how he words his requests and what he asks for. That classic conundrum of how can you outwit that genie. Now, Johnny Thunder eventually flees with his genie, and so the JSA start investigating this Earth. They want to find out what happened to the Justice League, and so they start visiting the people who should be the Justice League members. Shortly, in a police research laboratory, me, the Flash, the fastest man on Earth? You must be putting me on. My fiance, Iris West, always keeps calling me the slowest man on Earth. They mean that in terms of the fact that he's late all the time. When I post this panel, some people were like, oh, how could she say that? He's late. He's always late. That's also one of the jokes when he becomes the Flash, because he's still late. And in Ferris Aircraft Company hangar, I never heard of a power ring or of anyone named Abensur. I'm a test pilot, not a Green Lantern. He's taking the existence of a real Green Lantern very well. Johnny Thunder of Earth 2 is in some kind of magic coma that Dr. Fate can't get him out of, and that's why we can't solve the problem that way, so don't write in about it. He's useless. The JSA meet in the cave that used to be the headquarters of the JLA, but now it's empty, just a cave that they're hanging out in. Also, I guess in this issue, Jay is using Just for Men. His gray streaks are gone. I miss them. Now they've kind of figured things out, but they haven't figured out why it happened. And so they decide that maybe their best course of action is to pretend to be the JLA. Some people will take over their namesake, but for the others, Mr. Terrific will be Batman, Hawkman will be Martian Manhunter after a magic skin color change, and Dr. Fate will be Superman. Also, this means that Green Lantern is going to have to shrink Al down to being atom-sized and also change his hair color to brown. That's a lot of willpower. Also, really, they didn't need to do any of that cosmetic changing because on this Earth, nobody knows really that there was a Justice League. The other Johnny did, but they don't fully know that yet. But still, this way we can kind of have the Justice League in the story a little bit, as well as the way we're going to have them later, which is glorious. Now, the Thunderbolt tells Johnny of Earth 1 that those mysterious heroes have disappeared when he asked, which is technically true because they're pretending to be the JLA. This prompts Johnny to try and rob a charity cruise, because he's the worst. Now, one thing to know about this issue is as we're entering into the battlefront, the distinct lack of that Gardner Fox storytelling format where each battle is just repeated to full completion. So one fight, finish, next fight. This one, they break it up. It doesn't just have that repeating sequence, and so it feels more dynamic. Like when Johnny has the Thunderbolt split in 6, you even get an almost silent page of just action with dynamic paneling. Earth A truly is an alternate Earth. Now, when Johnny sees that his genie is losing, he calls him back and he hatches a different plan. He's gonna create his own Justice League. He's gonna send the genie back in time to ensure that the things that were supposed to happen to the Justice League happen to criminals that he chooses instead. So it is that Race Morrison and not Barry Allen gains the super speed of the Flash, as it is Barney Judson who becomes the size-shrinking Atom. Eddie Orson is gifted with the powers of the Martian Manhunter. Ripper Jones is substituted for Superman. Bill Gore is turned into Batman, and Monk Loomis wins the right to become Green Lantern. Fearless was one of the qualities that Abensur was looking for, but so was actually being upright and law-abiding. Abensur is slipping. He was dying, though. I love that they're named like we already know who Bill Gore is. However, this is one of those things where for some of them it works, but for others you can't think about it too hard. How did the one become Martian Manhunter? So now it's Johnny's villainous JLA against the JSA, because he has the Thunderbolt turn them back into themselves. And so the entire hook for the next issue is let them fight. And yeah, let's do that. Let's go. The next issue, 38, is Crisis on Earth A. The aggressive 5 o'clock shadow on Batman is great, and the Flash has a mustache. TOS mirror mirror intensifies. One of the consistent characterizations they give Earth 1 Johnny Thunder is that he's a coward. He doesn't want to be too close to the action. If things are going wrong, he gives up pretty much instantly. And so it is that at the start of this fight, he has the genie bring him back so he can watch it on TV, but a color TV. Now we get to see the JSA up against this villainous alternate JLA. A duo of Flashes whirls into super speed gyration as the only consolation about all this is I don't have to battle and defeat my Flash friend of Earth 1. Man, what speed I got. I don't have to be afraid of nothing now. This fight also hops around and is not paint by numbers, although some of the panels do have arrows to make sure you go with the right one next. Back and forth, the Emerald Warriors are staging a colossal combat of super weapons. I have a couple of advantages working for me. I'm experienced at power-wielding weapons to fight for me, and while I know his weakness, he doesn't know mine. Yeah, when Alan and Hal fight, it usually doesn't go too well for Hal, although the one where he really embarrassingly loses, Alan wasn't in his body. And then later, Alan and Hal have to share a body. We did a video on that. But what Alan is saying is key. What defeats this alternate Justice League is their lack of experience. Their past was altered and they were thrust into the present as the Justice League, and they just kind of had to go. The JSA are seasoned. They also know the weaknesses of their counterparts and they're not afraid to use them. Now for some of the characters, they avoid certain things. Like Dr. Fate is the one who takes on Superman, so we don't have to deal with the whole, does he have a kryptonite weakness? Because he's defeated by magic. Was that version from Krypton? Those are details. Now let's watch them take out the Martian Manhunter. A fire, and a fire is the one weakness of that super Martian. Oh, my superpower is draining out of me. Most people find their powers draining in the face of fire. Of these fights, Jay's is arguably the most dynamic. He really gets to shine here. He pulls the whole vibrating so fast, he seems to be in two places at once, so he can cheekily tap his opponent on the shoulder, and he's just drawn in this really joyful way. Gardner Fox seems especially fond of Jay. He is the one that he brought back first. But as his image starts to fade from the retina of the Earth 1 Flash, the true Flash lets go with a haymaker. He's so surprised to see me, he forgot to vibrate. The day they stop mentioning vibration in these stories, I'll be sad. The fruit's so low, but it's so good. I do also like Al Pratt managing to just take the other Atom's clothes off, like his little doll. Look at him shaking his tiny fists. Johnny gets to yell at the TV about this because his team loses, and after they're captured, Dr. Fate is able to compel them with his magic to explain what happened, so they learn about the time travel and how their pasts were altered. But Johnny's not done yet. Okay, he's tried alternate heroes, but what about having the JSA face the forces of nature? He summons a hurricane at first to slam into them, and he's just getting more and more unhinged in how he's drawn. Look at the panel afterwards, where when it doesn't work, he summons an earthquake. You're just looking right up his nose. So now the JSA must battle the forces of nature themselves. They do triumph, but they do get hurt in the process as well. And we do get some amusing lines like this one from Alan. That wood, my nemesis, slamming into me. That's amusing both in the context of this story and the later context of the retcon they're going to give him. But just in general, describing an object as your nemesis. Paperclips, my nemesis. If you had an inanimate object as a nemesis, what would yours be? My favorite thing about this scene, though, is that it ends up being both silly and heartwarming in that they all do need to work together so that they don't get overwhelmed, and so you get to see how they function together as a team. But that culminates in them all piling on top of each other in this circus-style formation, with Hawkman holding them from the top and the Flash aggressively pinwheeling at the bottom. But Johnny Thunder's not done yet. He's gotta think. He's gonna do that on the moon. As the Thunderbolt leaps eagerly to obey his say-you command. Cool it, Bolt, cool it. Not so fast. You think you're gonna trick me, eh? Well, I know there's no air on the moon, so put a spacesuit on me first so I can breathe. Oh yeah, and don't leave any trail for the Justice Society to follow. Next moment, upward to the lunar satellite of Earth 1 rockets the Badnesian Hex Bolt. I might have known I'd forget something. If there's no air on the moon, I can't give any commands to T-Bolt with no air. He can't hear them. Next moment, the criminal finger scrawls a command on the dusty lunar surface. Say you, put air on the moon. I mean, if we really want to get technical, he just told him to put air there, not a proper atmosphere, but still, there is a universe out there where Johnny's head just explodes and they're still all living on Earth A. Because remember, it's only Johnny that can command the Thunderbolt, and the other Johnny was in some kind of magical coma. Meanwhile, the JSA are working very hard to make sure that there are no plot holes for fans to write in about. So you have Dr. Fate expounding on why he can't undo the magic and just restore the original Justice League, and also why Alan can't do it. Alan has near godlike powers in these early stories. So does Hal, but Alan is much more aware of it. While you two went into the past, I circled the Earth in search of a clue to their whereabouts, and the only hint I came across was a mysterious funnel of air whirling away from the Earth. Look how they circumvented the leave no trail thing by having it be Johnny's request for air that left it. It's smooth like butter. Anyway, to the moon! But before they get there, Johnny has decided that his next thing is that he's gonna create his own creatures. And they are Medusa Man, who has a face that when you look at it, you'll be turned to wood. Absorbo Man, who can absorb superpowers and then use them against the other person. And Repello Man, who can repel any force hurled against him and direct it back. It's kind of like Absorbo Man, only he doesn't absorb the power first. The Atom and Mr. Terrific are instantly turned to wood before Dr. Fate puts a mask on Medusa Man. The society actually fares very badly against these creatures, and it comes across as pretty genuine and not as contrived as it could have given these creatures' power sets. Everything's gone wrong. I've got to stop one of these beings at least. But alas, Alan's power is absorbed and pushed back upon him, and by this point that leaves only Dr. Fate. But Dr. Fate is the MVP of this story. They didn't need anybody else. He takes the wooden JSA members and throws them at the Absorbing Man. And because he absorbed Alan's powers, we know what that means. He has a weakness to wood, and so he explodes. He then also casts a repel spell at Repello Man. and that means it's a double repel, so it comes back like a boomerang. And so with Medusa Man masked and probably suffocated because there were no holes in that mask that he put on him, Johnny sends the Thunderbolt against Dr. Fate. It's a magic fight and a frenetic one. Things are exploding, lightning, moon dust. It's all too much for Johnny Thunder. Frustrated by his failures, battered by the colossal conflict above him, Johnny Thunder screams his final command. Say, you Thunderbolt, stop. I wish none of this had ever happened. I wish everything was back the way it was before I saw you and that I never see you again the rest of my life, says me. Instantly, everything returns to where it originally was before Johnny Thunder of Earth 2 decided to go to Earth 1. Thus, at Justice Society headquarters, hi fellow members, good to see you again. Johnny, you're right on time. Let's start the meeting. I knew they had the meeting without him in the other timeline. It's like it never happened. What a crazy dream. Only not quite. We're not quite at what a crazy dream level because it did happen and the Thunderbolt does remember it. And the reason that it's reset, you can kind of understand because they went so hard into the alternate Earth. This way you could do all those things, but then return to the status quo. It allowed them to really get outside the box with what happened in this. Now, this is not the last we're going to see of evil Johnny Thunder. He's actually going to be part of the storyline that involves separating Black Canary into the two characters, her mom and herself. That happened because they wanted to explain her age and why she was still so young, and so then they created a whole generational element, and there's a whole storyline around it we talked about. There's another video for that. I'm going to have a whole list down in the description box. But as for this, with a wink to the readers from the Thunderbolt, that is the end of Earth A. An alternate Earth created out of a very specific set of circumstances and a really good time, although admittedly at times a bit silly. The thing is, this one is really creative. It completely breaks the mold/format that had been established, which was each group visits each of the Earths that are in the story and they do battle on each Earth. This one changes it up. The action pretty much primarily takes place on Earth 1/Earth A. This also, as mentioned, introduces the idea that the characters across the Earths could vary morally individually. It replaces the JLA in some very fun ways. You get them replaced multiple times. The JSA gets to dress up as them, they have villainous alternates, and then at the end they just introduce these monsters that aren't the JLA at all. Having the timeline altered in that way is interesting, although they took the time to name those criminals. Let's bring them back from obscurity. What's Ripper Jones up to? This story is clearly having fun with the idea of being able to alter the universe, and with the safety net as mentioned of being able to put everything back, it can go pretty far. One thing I do wonder is why aren't those panels of Batman's origin being undone memes in their own right? They're legendary. Legends of the Dark Knight. This one also isn't as predictable as some of the earlier ones, which you could kind of predict some of the outcomes because of that repetitive format. This doesn't have that. It's not quite clear where we're going. Ending up on the moon is a bit of a surprise, although there are admittedly some moments where you can tell where it's going, like when Medusa Man has the weakness to wood. Every escalation is a journey. Just when you think it couldn't go harder, it does. Johnny Thunder of Earth 1 really tried, and he was being sabotaged the entire way. Now, this one is more of a JSA showcase. The JLA are shuffled off very early on, and of them we really only see the Flash, and then at the end we see one shot of them at the meeting. This one more highlights how enjoyable the JSA are as a team in their own right. Now for me, I didn't miss the Justice League because this had so much else going on, but if one did really prefer them as the dominant team or didn't like the JSA, I can see this not really landing. Similarly, this one has some leaps in logic/suspension of disbelief that it asks from the reader that for some may just be too much. You have to, as mentioned, not think too hard about the origins of some of the villainous Justice League. You really have to go into kind of schoolyard battle mode for those monsters at the end with their power sets. Oh yeah, well my creature can repel the powers of your hero. For some, it will just be too silly and they won't be able to get into it, while for others it could be just a wacky, enjoyable thrill ride. It must be known that this one is also meant to be a bit more humorous in some regards because it does feature Johnny Thunder and his Thunderbolt, and they had a bit more of a comedic character dynamic. This one does have a good balance in that there are jokes of the Thunderbolt being sassy or subverting Johnny Thunder, but there's also a lot of genuine action, and Johnny, as mentioned, is really trying. There are some really fun battle panels in this that just stand out. Again, the Flash's fight with mustached evil Flash. The fact that this isn't an easy battle for the JSA is also fairly noteworthy. While they do have some fights that they breeze through, like when the Thunderbolt is split into 6, there are others where they really struggle, and it does make it feel like there's a bit more at stake to this story. The core story itself has a decent amount of depth because you have this Johnny Thunder of Earth 1 who's bitter when he learns about the reality that his Earth 2 counterpart has. He has all these powers and things that he never got, but because of his conditions on Earth 1, he's not even able to use that power to its full potential, although he does still use it very creatively. Both of these issues also feel very full. A lot was happening and just kept happening. Now, Crisis on Earth A was a lot of fun for me, but what did the people think at the time? We've been reading letters from the letters column of the time, and it's always very interesting. And today we have some fun ones. So let's go to letters columns of issues 41 and 42 and see what the people thought. And the last time we read these, one of the people who wrote in got roasted really hard. We'll never forget the legend of Gary Hornback. So let's read these and see if anything can compare. As always, these are a little long, so bear with me, but I think it's worth it to get into the fandom headspace and see the vibe and see what's changed and what stayed the same. Letter time. Dear editor, the August JLA was a tremendous piece of work. The cover was magnificent. Confidentially, well, you can make it public if you want. I was glad not to see the JLAers, as we see enough of them during the year anyway. Let the JSA, the original and greatest superhero group of comicdom, take over. Glad to see the return of Mr. Terrific and Johnny Thunder. I was wondering when Johnny T would get into action again. See, someone did miss him. I was also wondering if Gardner Fox could turn on the humor with him as he did 2 decades ago. This issue proves that he can. The story was the funniest JLA tale I've ever read. But somehow, the best part of the issue was the spot in which the Thunderbolt prevented the heroes from coming into existence, especially those 2 panels with the original Batman. They were the highlight of the issue. I'm sure I joined the Batmanians. Batmanians? Not Batmaniacs? Oh, it was right there. Everywhere, in thanking you for these prize panels. My only complaint was where the Thunderbolt turned those crooks into replicas of the JLAers. How could he have done this? I can see how a crook could become Atom or Flash, but how about the others? The criminal who replaced Superman would have had to have been born on the planet Krypton, just as the one who replaced John Jones would have had to be born on Mars. If this is what the Thunderbolt caused to happen, you should have elaborated on it. Oh, there's a response, but it's not mean this time. To have elaborated on how the Superman and John Jones, even Green Lantern switcheroos were made would have meant less space for more important details in the tale. Besides, when we said the Thunderbolt could do anything, we meant just that. Dear editor, great, magnificent, superb, and anything else you might care to add. What am I talking about? Crisis on Earth A, that's what. Nothing has equaled it, and I don't think anything else will. If you guys keep bringing back the heroes from the Golden Age, people 20 years from now will be calling this decade the Silver 60s. Scott's a prophet. And now for some shots fired at Marvel. Dear editor, there are quite a few imitations of the Justice League currently on the market. Some are good, but all the same they are imitations created by other publishers in an effort to emulate the success that DC has had with the original. In the comparatively short span of 2 years, a standard of superb story and art has been set by which your competitors are miserably inferior. That is your JLA JSA classics. To say I was greatly pleased with the second story of your current team-up effort would be a vast understatement. Gar Fox, ooh, casual, proved himself a mile ahead of the closest challenger as the best writer in the comics field. As for Mike Sekowsky, he can do no wrong, as the art he does proves. The best part of all of issue 38 is that ye editor displayed a lack of boasting, raving arrogance as shown by your rivals. I know what Leonard's talking about. He's talking about the overhyped covers that Marvel uses. They're like, you need this right now, is the best thing ever. For some people, that type of marketing really worked, / still does work. But I have to say, even though he's pretty salty about it, I do agree a bit with Leonard. I often find that kind of cover hype very off-putting, even when I like the issues. Although, in all fairness, DC did too sometimes. This crisis really does open up some doors for some of the things you can do inside of a crisis story. And it shows that you can really push the concept just like Earth 3 did. It's really starting to branch out and open up. It also shows that you can have a lot of variance and have a lot of fun with it. Although it does have a bit of a putting the genie back in the ball at the end. Our next crisis is Crisis between Earth 1 and Earth 2. And that's in 1966, so it has a very Batman 66 inspired cover. But before we get there, I want to hear, what did you think of Crisis on Earth A? Did you enjoy it? Was it too much? Too silly? Do you too enjoy villainous Johnny Thunder? Share your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear them. And please, while you're down there, do all the YouTube things. Like, subscribe, comment, hype if you're in the beta, and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.